and Councillor Lee and Councillor Nunziata. Are those the four? Are there more? Okay, well, if you want to come up here, you're more than welcome to come up, but I welcome them, as of course I welcome Councillor Gary Crawford, who is the chair of the Budget Committee, and we had quite a successful opportunity last year to sit down with you and talk principally about the budget, because I certainly believed when I was running a big company, and I know now that I have this position here at City Hall, that the single place, the single document, the single instrument that is the most important thing when it comes to any organization is its budget, because it's where you put the money that speaks perhaps louder than statements of good intention or otherwise. And so you're really the first people that we have exposed ourselves to in a group setting like this from the media to tell you about it and have a presentation from Josie and from Gary, but also to answer your questions. And so I'm glad we have this opportunity again this year, and if there are other questions that come to your mind about other matters germane to my job or to the job of my colleagues on City Council, of course, we're happy to answer those too. So Gary will tell you in a moment or two, it was a tough budget cycle this year. Government budget cycles now are tough because the people who live in the city or the people who live in the province or in the country are finding themselves, after a period of some economic uncertainty not that long ago, in a position where they are seeing all of their different costs rise, whereas their compensation might not be rising to the same extent. The governments at the same time are seeing a need for more and more services, whether it's building more transit, repairing the housing in the City of Toronto, or a host of other things we're called upon to do. Today we talked about childcare. And so it just means that it is a high pressure job to be the budget chair. Ultimately, as the mayor, I have the responsibility as the head of the council to make sure what is presented to our colleagues is something that both is sensible, but also has a chance of passing, because here at City Hall, as you know, there are no parties, and as a result, we have to put together a budget that can attract the support of a majority of the members of City Council. I have been quite resolute in saying that I also believe a fundamental part of this, beyond the obvious mandate that we have to deliver the best quality services we possibly can at the lowest possible cost, and I think that is your obligation, whether you're running a business or whether you're running a family or whether you're running a government, to deliver the best quality of service that you can for the least possible cost. And it has been with that in mind that we've also sought to keep the rate of increase in property taxes at or below the rate of inflation. I happen to believe that's important, and I think a majority of my colleagues have too since I've been here the last, now this is our third budget, because I know there are many people who live in homes and in condominiums, and for that matter in rental apartments, where they want to stay, especially homeowners and especially elderly homeowners, they want to stay in their home. But if they're on a fixed income or a lower income, or if they're a first-time home buyer, one of the biggest costs that they have to lay out or absorb each and every year is the cost of paying their property taxes. And if those are rising at huge rates of increase, it is going to make it difficult for those people to stay in their homes. I say quite often, the single biggest check that many families write, especially seniors and especially first-time home buyers, in a year, is often to the City of Toronto for their property taxes. And that's one of the reasons why they are focused on keeping the increase in that number as low as possible. I was elected on a very clear mandate to keep property taxes at or below the rate of inflation. And so any time that there's criticism levied, and that's what that chamber down there is all about, is healthy debate, but when there's criticism of this, I go back to the mandate that I received from the people to say, yes, we want you to keep property taxes as low as possible, while at the same time delivering good services to people. And I think one is not exclusive of the other. I will say this to you as well. I can count on the fingers of less than one hand the number of people that have come up to me in now the 2.5 years that I've been mayor and said, please increase my taxes by more than you're planning to do. People are, I think, saying that they're having trouble affording their lives in an overall sense, and that they look at even a user fee, for example, as being fairer than a property tax, because at least with a user fee you have the choice to change your behavior, whereas with property tax we send it out and you just have to pay. property taxes are predictable and reliable, and so in that sense they form an important part, the single most important part of our revenue base, and help us to maintain the police service, the fire service, the libraries, the roads, the transit system, the recreation programs. And I just want to mention briefly before I turn it over to Councillor Crawford a couple of the highlights, because I think you, from reading the media, you would think that while we have been trying to constrain expenditure, we've been trying to find efficiencies wherever we can, I think you might be left with the impression that some of the things that are very vital to people in the City of Toronto, starting with transit, are in some way going to be diminished by this budget. And nothing could be further from the truth. We will be spending this year in 2017, in the budget that I hope will be approved by the City Council, $80 million more on public transit, on the TTC, than we did last year. So I just repeat that. And because I would like any of you that have a way of turning an $80 million increase in expenditure into a cutback to stand up and explain it to me, because I don't understand how that works. This is an $80 million additional investment in the health and vitality of the public transit system in Toronto, the TTC, being made by the City of Toronto government, while at the same time keeping property tax increases at the rate of inflation. And so that means we'll be buying 800 new buses. We'll be working on the subway extension to York University, which opens this year. And the Scarborough subway extension work goes on to make that a reality. We will be investing $55 million in community grants to support recreation and art programs and festivals and things like that. Some of you will know people who have had the opportunity to receive those grants, and it's been instrumental to the good work done by their organizations. We are investing $185 million to make Toronto more affordable for low-income residents in different kinds of programs, increasing library hours. And so these are all things that we are able to do while at the same time keeping the property tax increase low. Why? Because Councillor Crawford and the members of the Budget Committee have done everything they can to identify tens and tens of millions of dollars of efficiencies. And lest those again get misrepresented as things that hurt people, I'll give you a small example of one, which is that we will begin to say to people in the field who work for the TTC, you can have one kind of phone, either one that sits on your desk and is plugged into the wall, or you can have one you carry in your pocket, but you can't have both. And I know from my own children, now they don't even have a land phone anymore because they just rely on their portable phone to take all of their calls. And we're saying from the standpoint of people who work in the public sector, that sort of thing is what we have to move to doing, and that will save us hundreds of thousands of dollars just by itself. So I hope that, that you'll find this session useful. I want to say in front of you, thank you to not only the members of the Budget Committee and my colleagues on City Council, but especially to our incredibly hardworking city staff. Josie is their chosen senior-most representative here tonight, but they are an amazing team of people who've worked on this literally the entire year. As soon as one budget is finished, the next one begins, and that's the same in a lot of your businesses and a lot of households, but that's true at the City of Toronto as well.
Is the lady sitting?
Josie is right there, and she'll be standing up, I'm sure, when it's time to make her presentation in just a moment. So on that note, I would like to introduce my colleague, who's the one that really has done a lot of the work on the elected official end of this, Councillor Gary Crawford. He's got the toughest job in the city government. I think it might be even harder than mine some days, and that is as the budget chief, and he will now say a few words with my thanks for a job well done so far. And we've got to get this approved tomorrow at Executive Committee and a week from now at Council, but so far so good. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do want to also acknowledge my council mates who are here today, and of course Councillor Nunziata, who's actually on the Budget Committee, and has been working with me and the committee over the last probably couple of months since the middle of December when we launched the public part of the operating and capital budget for 2017. And of course, staff months before that, and all the work that they did in bringing to us a budget.